Welcome to the Addiction Solution Podcast. I'm Michelle Dunbar. Enjoy listening and watching as addiction experts Mark Sheeran and I cover controversial as well as helpful topics on addiction, how to move past it, and other related subjects. As two of the co-founders of the Freedom Model, Mark and I will give you a completely new perspective on the topics that matter to you. We will take to task the Recovery Society's lies and misinformation and replace them with facts, research, and the methods to move on from addiction struggles without 12-step meetings, rehabs, and the shackles of endless recovery. Let's escape the treatment and recovery trap together and learn to be free. Welcome to the truth. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Addiction Solution. I'm Michelle Dunbar.
And I'm Mark Sheeran, and we wrote the Freedom Model for Addictions, Escape the Treatment and Recovery Trap with our colleague, Stephen Slate.
We just want to tell you quick about our Solution to Addiction workshops and coaching packages. I'm not sure everybody knows about them. They've become incredibly popular, and we're having tremendous success working with people in this way. The Solution to Addiction workshop and the Solution to PMO and Sex Addiction workshop are both available as standalone courses. But if you want, you can combine them with our 3-session coaching package that involves 3 sessions, 90-minute sessions with either Mark or me or a Freedom Model coach over the course of about 3 weeks. Sometimes people extend that out a little bit, but this seems to work incredibly well.
Yeah, it's very efficient. It's very effective because the workshop frames everything out so beautifully. Plus you get, what else do you get? You get the online program.
You get 3 months of the online program because there are a lot of people that struggle to read this book.
It's 470 pages. Not everybody's going to read it.
No, and not everybody needs to read the whole thing.
That's right.
So with the coaching package, you can meet with us. We can say, hey, I think you would benefit from looking at these chapters, watching these video lessons. That online program gives you video tutorials of the entire book. So, and we add new video lessons every single month.
That's right.
And you get to talk with us, the two of us together, on the last Wednesday of every month as well.
Right. That's in addition to the coaching sessions.
Yes. So that will extend out. So if your 3 coaching sessions are done in month 1, you'd get the opportunity to talk with us in month 2 and month 3 as well. Okay. So this is a tremendous value, and we really want everybody to know about it because we've had such success with it. So,
and we have that for PMO and sex addiction now too, as a standalone unit. So we have the workshop and the coaching package for substance use, and then we have it for PMO and sex addiction as well.
So you can find those at thefreedommodel.org. It's right in the menu. They're the first 2 options in our menu. So pick the one that you want, or if you want to talk with us, you can call us at 888-424-2626. That first phone call with us is absolutely free, and we can help you figure out what might work best for you.
All right, everybody. Okay, so no one needs rehab.
Yep, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to tell you exactly why.
So it's funny because, with everybody thinks rehab.
You got to go away. You got to get out of your life.
Yeah, it's almost become I don't know the words, but like a statement that
everybody accepts it.
Right.
It is absolutely, if you say to someone, I really have a bad drinking problem. I have really bad problem with heroin, with whatever it is. If you say, I think I'm an addict, the very first thing, there's 2 things they're going to tell you to do, right? Did you try meetings? Right. You should go to meetings, right? Like AA, NA. You should go to rehab. You should go get evaluated to go to rehab. Well, first of all, if you go to get evaluated to go to rehab,
you're going to rehab.
You'll qualify.
You're going to rehab. I made that mistake. And 18 months later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody that goes to get evaluated ever is told you don't need rehab.
Yeah. It's funny. We did a little study about that years ago, decades ago.
Yeah.
and we took the evaluation questionnaire for DMV, recommending or not recommending treatment. And I had the entire staff, which we had at that point.
Even people that had never had a problem ever.
Yeah. And the way they crafted the questions, I said, answer honestly and legitimately. And it ended up that everybody needed rehab, even people who had like 4 beers in their life. It was hilarious. It's sad. It's tragic, actually. It's disgusting. But
all roads lead to rehab.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. When we started the retreats, that was really, I mean, the research started in 89 and we opened the first retreat in 92. So, and the reason that we did it that way is because we started in that model.
Yeah, we didn't know. I remember thinking it's so interesting because when we really first started at the Baldwin House, which was your home, Michelle's home and her father's home, that's where the research started. And there was 38 of us in that first year study. Your father had figured out that rehab wasn't needed, and he created, and we've talked about this in other podcasts, but he created the educational initiative.
Which, that's right. That's right. I forgot about that.
Which ironically is the freedom model. That was the skeleton of the freedom model. And he was so ahead of his time at that point. And that was where he brought a message into companies and anywhere where there was a group of people, and he could present to them that they were free and they didn't need rehab and that they could move on with their lives. That's where we developed life movements and a lot of the components that still exist in this book. A lot of it's still in here. And then what happened was we took that message and we introduced it to the treatment community, and they rejected it.
Yeah, fully.
And actually threatened us because we were basically, we had created a model where they weren't needed. And we said, well, geez, you could be more cost effective. You could lower your prices. And they're looking at us like, what are you, crazy? You know, we're making billions of dollars. So
but that was telling even back then. I mean, that was like 1990.
So then we fell into the trap. We said, well, maybe we'll make our own model. And then we started the retreats, and that,
now, if you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah, it was so stupid. But at that time, that's what we knew. We really didn't understand the gold that we had hit on in a research perspective. We didn't realize how powerful this was all going to end up being for people, that they could be free, that they didn't need to go to rehab. But we fell into this sort of, how long was it? 20, 30 years of getting sidetracked in the retreat model.
30 years exactly, because we opened our first retreat in 92 and we closed our last retreat in 2022. So,
wow.
But here's the problem. Back then, I mean, to our credit, people were going to rehab in droves, right? That's what they thought they needed. So we decided at that point, well, maybe we'll make a better model so that at the very least, they're going to get the right message while they're away.
And so we did. We ended up having the highest success rate in the world.
We did.
Right.
We were the only ones that when we would tell like real rehabs, oh yeah, we're doing follow-up studies. And for the first 10 years, we contacted every single person that had come through the retreat.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a huge effort. And then basically independent research companies started studying our model, and that's where we got our statistics. It wasn't us doing the follow-up studies. But what happened with that, this is an interesting history and why we can say no one needs rehab. First of all, we were against the disease concept. We were against really AA, but we were in AA. We were very mixed up because we were deconstructing the whole model. And as we were doing that, we were in this retreat environment. And then we did something. When did Steve start doing the New York office where people would come in? And
2010 or 2011, somewhere in there.
So this is pre the Freedom Model book publishing, which was 2017. So for 7 years, we were just taking our retreat model, and we created a satellite office in Manhattan, and Steve started teaching day classes where people would go to his office and meet with him for an hour or two, and started the coaching model. And now I had already written a paper about what we call cognitive behavioral education.
That's right.
Which is what really the freedom model is. It is a cognitive model. It's based on your mind, your thoughts, which then affects your behaviors. And we educate on that model through data and facts. And so it's cognitive behavioral education. And so the coaching model fit the education model, obviously, because that's what coaching is all about. And Steve was implementing this. And then I remember Steve saying to us, geez, I don't think we need to go through the entire book with a lot of these people. I was like, really? Because at the retreat, you'd start from page 1, you'd go all the
That's
way through
right.
it. And it took a month to go
And
through.
everybody went through the same process, right? The same educational process.
Whether they needed all that information or not. I felt like the more thorough we were being, the better it was. But the reality is there was a waste of time for people there, and there was a waste of resources on our and it was expensive, frankly, because you had to have chefs and you're taking care of the place. And it wasn't the most cost-effective thing for every family.
We had 3 retreats, and at our high water mark, we had, including part-time staff, like 130 employees.
Yeah, it was a huge endeavor. And we're getting people. We had a shuttle going to the airport constantly, and you're dealing also with their families. You're dealing with a whole complex series of problems. So you had phone staffs, and it was a huge effort. But out of that is how this was developed.
It is
this book. If you can't see the video, it was awesome. In that respect, it was awesome because I always said that the retreats were our laboratory.
They were living laboratories where I think it was, for a long time we had group classes, but never more than 4 people to an instructor. And I think it was in, I don't know, 2017, 2018. I had never had a one-on-one class.
That's right.
And I was filling in for one of the instructors, one of the coaches at the executive retreat, which was all private classes. And now our coaches had said, we need private classes.
Yeah, one-on-one.
They had been saying that for a while. And so I met with this young person. He was like 24, and he had been to, and he was at the executive retreat, which was unusual. But he had been to like all the different rehabs around the country, and he's like, this experience is by far the most effective experiences I've ever had. And I sat with him for like 2 hours, and he explained to me, because he was only there a few weeks. He wasn't there the full, I don't think he was there like not even 4 weeks. And he said, the one-on-one classes are everything, because when you're sitting in a room with a bunch of other substance users, he called them something else. I'm not going to call them that, right? A bunch of other substance use, and he was there for heroin, a lot of different drugs, but heroin primarily. And you're in group therapy, or you're at a rehab and our executive retreat at the time had capacity for 6 people. You're at a rehab where there's 30, 40, 50 people. He's like, you're always thinking about what somebody else thinks of you. Yeah. You're always on display. You're performing.
Yeah, you're saying what you think they want to hear.
Yeah.
And you're working on a peer pressure model where your story has to be the worst or the best therapeutically, or you're basically full of shit at that point.
I went
he's
through
like,
it. He's like, every rehab I went to was all about what people thought of me.
Yeah.
It was never, he goes, but when I'm sitting one-on-one with a coach who, first of all, right off the rip, his coach was like, you can't shock me, and I'm not going to judge you. This is a safe space, so to speak, where you can just tell me what's going on and we can figure it out together. And he goes, not being judged. He goes, I've never felt that way sitting even one-on-one with a counselor before. He's like, there was always this idea of, I knew that counselor, the only way I could be successful was total abstinence.
Yep.
And I had to basically say that that's what I wanted, even if I didn't.
Yep.
And so that was just one aspect of this whole rehab experience that makes it all, let's set aside the fact that rehabs teach you the wrong shit.
Well, they give you a disease you don't have.
Right. You get
Horrible.
labeled, you get like
Yeah.
all of that, we know that that's true. But I want to talk about the other part of it, the part about the idea that you need to go away and be away from home and with a group of people that are going through the same thing as you and be in a supportive environment. I want to talk about why that's not necessary.
Yeah.
And this 24-year-old kid in just in a 2-hour conversation made me realize how much not only is it not necessary, but problematic.
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime that people feel so let me tell you how we replaced that model first. So when we closed the retreats, we just went to the coaching model, obviously. Most of that, the predominantly, I'd say 90% is we're teaching over Zoom in an hour and a half to a 2-hour session, usually about an hour and a half. After that, you get tired. And 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 that works. I mean, it's incredibly effective because people are at home.
They're
And
in
then,
their lives, they're living their lives.
and then for the people that absolutely believe that they need to stop their life, what we learned is, okay, you believe you need that, come and meet with us for 2 days.
Yeah.
And we go through the entire curriculum. We build their puzzle. We deconstruct their issues. We devalue the
Privately.
substance. And
One person at a time.
one person, 2 days. That's the max we will do. And then, of course, we have dinner time and lunch, and we have breakfast with them. And then we take them to and from the airport and all that. So it ends
Right.
up being about 2.5 to 3 days total time. And not 4 weeks, 6 weeks, none of that, so you don't have to go through this entire book with everybody. You just
No.
don't. You have to tailor, you have to build that puzzle.
That's it.
And once you know the why behind their use, what are the perceived benefits? What is the meaning they've given booze, drugs, fetish objects, whatever it is? What is the value that they've created? What are the fantasies behind it? You dig into that, you can do that in a
day.
Yeah.
Like we
unbelievable.
set it up so the puzzle is built in a day, in less than a day, really. It's usually the morning, like the morning session, we build the puzzle, we break for lunch, and then in the afternoon and then the whole next day, we're deconstructing, we're dismantling that binge construct with this person.
Yeah. And so a lot of times what we'll do, if the person comes to us for that 2 days, prior, we get them the workshop.
Yes.
And they watch the workshop, which sets this whole thing up, sets up the logic train. Oh, this is how I'm applying the freedom model to my issue. And I like to call it the why. Once you figure out why you're doing what you're doing, then you can question it. But most people that we get, whether it's coaching at home, whether it's coaching in the 2-day, we call it CAS, Complete Addiction Solution Program, that 2 days with us, most people have no idea why they're doing what they're doing. They think they do, but they don't really understand the value creation that they've put into this and the amount of meaning that they've attributed to the drugs or the fetish objects. So it's illuminating, to say the least, because then they can challenge those beliefs. If you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, you can't challenge it.
Do you know why 12-step programs and rehabs don't do this?
I don't know. I don't know what you're going to say. I could guess. I have a lot of ideas.
I mean, think about it for a minute. Like, you're not even allowed to talk about what you like about it. What do they call that? They called that there is something in AA.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Keep going. I'll yell out with it.
So you're
stories.
War stories. You're not allowed to talk about the fun. It was never fun. You're rewriting your history. You're not allowed. There's a fear. And the reason, I think, I mean, this is my opinion, the reason they don't have you talk about it, there's a couple of reasons. One, because they're afraid it's going to draw you right back to it.
Yep.
Because they don't challenge it because they believe it.
Yeah. Well, they've built the drug up. Those programs build the drugs up, and they're terrified to to go too deep into that building up of it, because they know that everybody's going to relapse. And it makes recovery look like a deprivation based misery fest, because you can't have this built up thing.
Well,
It's literally the opposite of a solution.
it
It's
is.
literally the opposite of understanding that what you believe mostly is fiction. And
I mean, what a bunch of bullshit. You're supposed to believe it's all bad. Yet, if you poll all the people that work at the rehab, how many people have a cocktail in the evenings? I bet it's probably 60%,
oh, more. I
right?
bet you it's 80 or 90.
Have a cocktail in the
Sure,
evening. Well,
sure.
I'm just thinking the population at large,
Yeah.
there's probably 30-40% of people that don't drink at all,
Right,
right?
right.
But more than half do.
Mhm.
And well, if it's all bad, why do you like that's a valid question. If it's all bad, then why do you partake?
Yeah, because they can and you
Right.
can't.
And you can't.
That's
And
that whole power struggle.
right. So when Mark talks about we're gonna ask you your why, some people would just be like, well, of course, it's wonderful. That's why I love it. I mean, it's wonderful. And it's like, not of course.
Right. Well, it's funny because I get with people with PMO problems, right? Porn
Oh,
problems.
yeah, good
And
example.
they'll be like, well, nudity is irresistible, orgasm is irresistible. Now, irresistible is a funny, because they talk about irresistibility, right? And that you can't stop yourself, that no matter what. And I say, so you're telling me that if you were at a let's say a nudist camp, that you just start masturbating publicly?
What about even if you're at like a topless beach?
Yeah, topless beach. That just it's because irresistible means you can't stop. That you have to like it. And I say, well, take an image of somebody who's naked that you don't find attractive. Does that mean that they are irresistible still to you? So you start to realize that all of this stuff is just they portray in that world it that way, but in the drug world they say no matter what, you're gonna like getting high forever.
Heroin is like a warm blanket
for your emotions.
Yeah, but the vast majority of people, the vast majority, 97% who try heroin once don't ever go back to it.
Right.
Right. Or get morphine. They like all these people get morphine having surgery. They don't all become hooked. The vast majority don't.
But what the recovery community does, let's wrap it back to what we're talking about, is they make it sound like it's irresistible.
Yep.
They make
like
it
everybody would love it.
Yeah. And they build the drug up and then they say you're not allowed to have it, which then creates a taboo condition, which actually raises the value even more. So then you have a situation, and then they say your end result of all this, you dirty addict, is that you have to get clean and be deprived of this marvelous, amazing, warm, sensation that can't be had any other way, but you're not allowed to have it.
Right.
Talk about creating a scenario that is guaranteed to fail. It is literally the opposite of working with human behavior, motivational human behavior. It's anti-motivational. It says you have to pick the path that sucks and you feel deprived, and it's hard work. Now, the only people that sort of join on and do the recovery thing are those that value the valiant fight. And then they see that becomes their self-image. Their self-image is now, I'm a person in recovery, and everybody, that's so hard. It's so hard. And they go, yeah, it is. It's tough. It's a one day at a time battle. And they get all those accolades. By the way, I went through all this. That's how I know
we did it.
It's all bullshit. It's all this.
It always
charade.
felt weird though.
It did.
Didn't it? Like the anniversary meetings and everybody clapping for you. I can remember having getting to 5 years, and they had a big party for me at my home group and everything. And I remember thinking it's not difficult. I'm getting applauded for not drinking and using drugs, for not being a total fuck up. I'm getting applauded for things that
the average Joe does daily.
Right. It made I did not, by that point, I was already on my way out. But it just, I think I was pregnant for Steve. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is just too weird.
Yeah. What is happening here? So let's get back to the beginning. Is no one needs
No one
rehab.
needs rehab.
So what you're going to find in this whole rehab argument is you don't need something that guides you on a path of deprivation,
No.
of feeling deprived of this marvelous thing. So instead of going somewhere to feel deprived, to learn how to, live in a deprived world, instead of all that, why don't you just stay home, have a session and say, okay, why do you do what you do? Then let's challenge the validity and the results of that why.
Yeah.
Because the why is very personal. Building the
Mhm.
puzzle with somebody, when I'm coaching somebody, I ask dozens and dozens and dozens of questions. And I know Michelle does as well. We trained together, right? We built this together. So you ask all these questions and you figure out, oh, and I can see the why. I build
Yeah.
the puzzle and I'm like, okay. And I have a notepad and I go, okay, they get high for this reason, this reason. And then I'll say, why do you think you get high? I don't know. And then I basically, Michelle does the same thing. We regurgitate back to them. We repeat back to them.
This is what you said.
This is what you said. I wrote down these words. Now, it's an amazing thing for my emotions. I get to de-stress. I get to escape. It's my friend. That's a real common one. It's like a friend to me. And they go, yeah. And then I go, how is it a friend? Now we start challenging.
Well, and the truth is, if it's really doing those things, those are great reasons.
Yeah. I say because you believe that.
Of course you want that.
Good God, no wonder you have a massive appetite for it.
Yeah.
But is it possible that maybe you're seeing it wrong? That it's objectively not true, that it isn't your friend. Maybe it doesn't have friendship qualities. Maybe it doesn't have the ability to be a friend because it doesn't have sentience. It can't think. So a friend thinks and talks to you, these things. And so you start with the really glaring, obvious bullshit things that people are telling themselves.
Yeah.
Like, you really think it's a friend? Well, no, it's kind of metaphoric. Well, tell me about the metaphor.
Yeah.
And now, you see, now we're deconstructing.
Well, here's the other part of this. I'm gonna shift gears a little bit, because what Mark's talking about is working with someone who is living their life in that moment. One of the number one reasons that people talk about wanting to get high and drunk is to escape, right? It's to leave their life for a minute, for a moment, a little while, even though it can't actually do that. They believe it's doing that for them, right? Especially if you're a blackout drinker. It really does give you that illusion that I was gone for a little while. You weren't, but you have that illusion that was happening. Well, what happens when you go away to rehab? You leave your life for a little while.
Yeah, so there's a real incentivized motive to leave.
Yeah.
Oh, I get to escape, and now I get a special label to do it.
Special label. I don't have to deal with all the bullshit that I escape from when I'm using. So a lot of times people get if it's your choice to go to rehab. Now, I'm not talking about people who get shoved into rehab against their will, because most of those people don't finish it. They get drunk and high there and they leave, right? Or they're kicked out. But the people that are like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go to rehab. I can remember wanting to go to rehab and thinking I get a 30-day or 28-day vacation from my life. And a lot of people would say that when they come to the retreat, oh, it's easy here.
Yeah, it's a bubble. We used to get that at the retreat. And you know what? We did. We created a bubble.
It was a bubble.
And it was to their detriment.
Yeah.
It was to their detriment because it ill prepared them to go home. I'd much rather, it's 10 times more effective. I don't know, statistically, it's 10 times. It's a lot more effective to say to somebody at home, did you get drunk today? Yeah, but I sobered up for class. Okay, let's talk about what you did.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about, I want to ask a bunch of questions. How did it go with your wife? How did it go with the kids? What does your boss think? And now I know the person, obviously. And so what happens is I can address that, and then I can craft a lesson and homework. And sometimes it's, okay, embrace being drunk. I want you to take a piece of paper In one column, you're going to do this, another while you're drinking, and I'm not going to say exactly
Yeah, a
how I
lot of
do
people
all
know the
this.
experiment.
Yeah.
If you've watched the solution workshops,
Yeah. So
yeah, it's an experiment.
yeah, it takes a little while to explain. So, but the point is, I'd have an assignment based on what they're actually experiencing, or it may not be that assignment. It might be an assignment to devalue it some other way, or have a talk with their wife about what's going on. Maybe if they're hiding it, to no longer hide it and have an open discussion with the family and say, this is what I'm going to do for a while. I'm going to drink, but I'm going to be open about it to take the value down, and expose that this is who I am and embrace it. It might be that. It could be a number of things, but you're dealing with real issues at the time that they're
That's it.
happening. And people are able to go, oh, now we're applying the freedom model in real time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Look,
not theory.
if you want to get away, go on vacation.
Yeah.
I mean, rehab is not a vacation. Anybody that's been rehab knows it's not a
It's a
vacation.
horrible, expensive vacation.
Yeah. Yeah. Where you're not free at all.
Right.
So if you feel like you need to get away, that is why we do the workshop, the in-person workshop.
Right. CASP.
Where you can come to upstate New York, you can spend a couple days with us and be immersed in learning the freedom model. And then you go back home right away. You start applying what you learned, and we meet with you, weekly or every couple weeks right after, for the weeks following you leaving. And so we can do that. We can ask those questions. Okay, how did this week go? Like, tell me a little bit about what's going on at home, and how you were feeling about your substance use at that point, or whatever it is you're trying to solve.
That's right. So I guess the point is, no one needs rehab, because rehab teaches you how to stay twisted up and mixed up.
It
and
reinforces your
confused.
beliefs.
Yeah. Which is a lot of confusion. What you're provided is a distraction from making an internal decision based on facts. So instead, the solution is somewhere out there that you have to be propped up by
That's
supportive
it.
people, that it's a matter of weakness. It is not. There is no vat of will that gets depleted. That the idea that you need more willpower is bullshit. That's a complete fabricated idea. There is no such thing necessary. You're completely capable. What you are is confused because you have given the drugs or your fetish object powers it does not possess.
Right.
And by giving it that, you frame it that way and you value it that way. And until you challenge that, you're fucked. I mean, you're always going to go back to the thing that you believe benefits you, even if it's a myth, even if it's not true.
Yeah.
So the answer is not willpower or strength, because there's no weakness present. The answer is identifying what you value and how you have created value in your experience with a substance or fetish object. Once you figure that out, that's your why. Then we challenge it for its validity, its truth. And then then that will devalue it. And then you're not going to want something that doesn't serve you.
Nope. That's exactly right. And so if anything, I have known people, if you've watched the solution workshop, we talk about the disco ball. I have known people that got shoved into their first rehab in their teens and early 20s and didn't have a disco ball before they went to rehab.
Yeah, they didn't have big value in the drug. They just got shoved into rehab way early. And now
20 years down the road, they're still struggling because rehab actually built the value.
Yeah.
Because it was something so wonderful, so amazing, so delicious, so powerful that they couldn't say no, but it was something they couldn't have. They were broken people that couldn't partake in the wonderfulness.
Yeah, and then the whole idea that you're weak and in need of will and that you're deprived, and it becomes such a diversion
Yeah.
Such a horrible distraction. This whole recovery, propped up need for support thing becomes such a useless thing over here, when the reality is, look inside and see the value that you see in that object.
Yeah.
And then deconstruct that.
Now, if you're listening and you went to rehab and you're like, I solved my problem, I feel great, I'm doing great, that's because you solved your problem in spite of what you learned,
Yeah.
not because of it.
Yeah.
You solved it the same way everybody does who solves it. And that is, you decided, you devalued it, you decided I'm happier without it, and you moved on.
That's it.
That's how everybody solves it.
That's it.
So you don't need meetings, you don't need rehab. No one needs rehab. We're going to do one exception, though, one caveat, not with rehab, but physical detox.
Yeah, it's a different thing.
That is a different thing altogether. We are not talking about that. Alcohol and benzodiazepines. If you are a heavy drinker, heavy benzo user, that's like Xanax and Klonopin
Valium.
and Ativan,
Yeah.
Valium. If you're a heavy user, medical detox is advisable, because withdrawal from it can be life-threatening. If you're a heavy opiate user, now I'm not sure if inpatient detox even exists, or if they just stick everybody on Suboxone.
Just don't get put on Suboxone for life.
Yeah.
If they're tapering you with Suboxone, the point is, in all three classes, opiates, benzos, and alcohol, and others, the point is to be drug-free.
Yeah, detox is a finite event.
And you have a good doctor that isn't a pill pusher, isn't going to put you on Suboxone for life. And God knows, if you have a benzo problem or an alcohol problem, why get on Suboxone? Why get on something that has withdrawal in and of itself?
Yeah,
it's
you don't need it.
Completely insane.
Yeah.
So don't get put on methadone.
Suboxone is not addiction medicine for like all addictions. It's only a matter of time before people with gambling problems and all these are going to be put on this medication. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. Just to sell pills.
Yeah.
There is no value. It is only valuable as a taper for opiate detox, but it isn't necessary for opiate detox. There is misinformation out there that that opiate detox is dangerous. If you're an otherwise healthy person, it isn't. It's not dangerous like alcohol or benzodiazepines is.
But see a competent doctor.
Yep.
Go to a competent detox and tell them, I want to be drug free.
You can be
at the end of 10 days. Now, if you're on methadone, a high dose of methadone, you may have to be more choosy with the detox, and you may have to go away for a month.
Yeah.
Or get tapered over a longer period of time.
Yep.
But see a doctor. We're not doctors.
Nope.
Want to make that clear. But we've worked with these situations for almost 40 years.
Yeah, we have a long, long time. So next week we have a really great guest coming on. She solved her substance use problems on her own and quit smoking and wrote a book about it. And her name is Jessica Hartnett. And yeah, we're gonna have her on next podcast episode. So check that out. And if you like the Addiction Solution podcast, share it with your friends.
Yes. And please give us a 5-star. We got some trolls on there that are pushing negative reviews. And we get that with the AAers. Just happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, give us 5-star review and yeah, let everybody know about the Addiction Solution podcast.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.